Okay. Okay. Welcome. Good evening. The time is 6:02 p.m. and I would like to call to order the Board of Directors meeting today for Wednesday, March, what's today? Wednesday, March 18th, 2026 to order. As you can tell, my voice is not what it usually is. I'm suffering from laryngitis. So I'm actually going to turn the gavel over to Vice Chair of the Executive Committee, Julie Roche, to run the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll be Betsy's voice today. So she'll still whisper in my ear with her chair duty. So welcome, everyone. So good afternoon. The time is 6 p.m. or 6:02, I think. And I would like to call the Board of Directors meeting to order on Wednesday, March 18th, 2026. We're located at Ava's headquarters at 1999 Harrison Street in Oakland in the Ultimate Conference Room. Members of the public wishing to make a comment can do so by either using the raise hand function in Zoom or *9 if you're joining through the telephone. And now, Clerk, can you please take the roll?
Thank you very much. Alameda County. Albany.
Present.
Berkeley. Dublin.
Present.
Emeryville. Fremont. Hayward.
Here.
Lathrop. Livermore. Newark.
Present.
Oakland.
Present.
Pleasanton.
Present.
San Joaquin County. Stockton.
Present.
Thank you. Tracy.
Present.
Union City.
Here.
Community Advisory Committee.
Here.
San Leandro. And Piedmont.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. And now let's do the Pledge of Allegiance. Is it okay? Please stand, everyone.
I pledge
Allegiance
flag
to the flag of the United States of America
and
and to the republic
for which it
which it
stands,
stands,
one
a
nation,
nation under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
liberty.
liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And now let's see, now we'll move on to public comment. Public comment is reserved for members of the public wishing to give a public comment on non-agenda items. Members of the public will have 2 minutes to give their comment. Do we have any members wishing to make a public comment at this time?
Yes. There are no hands raised at this time.
Okay, great. So no one in the room, no one online.
No one in the room, and there are no hands raised in the attendee area. And I do not see any indication from the remote locations.
Okay, thank you. Then I will go ahead and close public comment. And our next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from February 18th, 2026. If there are any questions, comments, or corrections, now's the time, or I'll be open to a motion for the minutes. Sorry?
The consent agenda.
Oh, it's part of the consent. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Okay, so I guess so it's consent. Thank you. You're right. I have this. Okay. Okay, sorry. So it's part of the minutes are part of the consent item. So if anyone has any comments or questions about consent items or wants to pull one, now's the time to do it. And if not, I'll be open to a motion for the consent calendar. Oh, and before that, thank you. Chair, that's why the chair is here next to me. Is there any public comment for the consent calendar?
There are no hands raised at this time. And I do not see indication of hands raised at any of the remote locations.
Okay, thank you. Then we'll close public comment for the consent calendar and I'll entertain a motion for the calendar.
Move consent. Pleasanton. Second. Berkeley.
Thank you.
Okay,
We'll call roll on that.
great, thank you. Pleasanton,
Aye.
Berkeley,
Aye.
thank you. Alameda County. Albany,
Yep.
Dublin,
Aye.
Emeryville,
Aye.
Fremont, Hayward,
Aye.
Lathrop, Livermore, Newark,
Aye.
Oakland,
Aye.
San Joaquin County,
Yes.
Stockton,
Aye.
Tracy,
Aye.
Union City,
Aye.
San Leandro, and Piedmont.
Aye.
The consent calendar is approved.
Thank you. Then let's move on to our regular agenda. And our first item is the CEO report.
All right, as Adrian pulls that up, I'll just start jumping into things. As we normally do, just a quick summary of our recent meetings. We had an XCOM meeting held on Wednesday, March 4th. Members received updates on the conference sponsorship policy for board members, which is something that's on the regular agenda for this evening. And the next meeting will be on Wednesday, April 1st at 3 p.m. That's regularly scheduled time. We also had a marketing regulatory legislative subcommittee meeting that was held on Friday, March 6th, and members received an update on the regulatory legislative priorities and AVA's outreach strategy. We are going to be reviewing legislative items on tonight's regular agenda as well. So preview of those items. Next MRL subcommittee will be on April 10th at 10 a.m. What's not listed here is I will just note that we had a regularly scheduled Finance, Procurement, Administrative Subcommittee meeting for later this month. That has been canceled since there's nothing active that requires attention for that subcommittee. Next year, I wanted to highlight we have reaffirmed our credit rating. So we were previously an A rating from Standard & Poor's. We have reaffirmed that. That's a sort of a standard process that they have. As a quick reminder, we initially received that A rating back in 2021. So every couple of years, they do a reaffirmation of that rating. So that's fairly standard practice. Nothing particularly noteworthy on that, except to just say that I think it is certainly a very good sign that we have reaffirmed things with our current financial forecasts. And we've obviously been talking about with our board some of the various challenges and volatility that we have in the market. And so even with those projections and how we're managing that, how we're utilizing our rate stabilization fund and our reserves and everything like that, S&P is very comfortable reaffirming that with no sort of cautionary watches or anything like that within our credit rating. We do have some bullets there. I'm not going to read through all of those things. Those are little snippets that are taken directly from the short reaffirmation write-up that's been provided. And we're going to be posting that affirmation letter within our key documents section, as we typically do with these types of items for future reference. The last thing I will note on that point is the sentence that's just be above the unincorporated San Joaquin County enrollment, which is S&P did acknowledge some of the challenging regulatory environment and exposure to further PCI reform as part of their process. So again, noting some of the realistic challenges and things that we face, but also recognizing that we're able to work through those and manage that risk. On the next topic here, which is the unincorporated San Joaquin County enrollment. This is a topic we'll talk about for the next couple of months. On the one hand, it is now a process that we've operationalized a couple of times, and it has gone successfully. So it is somewhat of a standard process for us. But of course, it's always worth highlighting this is a large and significant activity that's happening. This is 60,000 customers that we're going to start enrolling in May of 2026. We are providing notifications, which started in March. Those will also go out in April. And then we will follow that up with additional notifications after those customers are enrolled. This is a short bulleted list of just the different avenues that we communicate, educate, and market the changes that will be taking place over the next few months. And you can see below that is a sample. If you can scroll a little bit, Adrian, there, and then the next page, just a sample of a couple of the notifications that we're providing out there, standard notifications through all of the typical channels, social media and otherwise. So obviously very excited for that. And as is often the case when you start enrollment for a new territory, there are a lot of questions that arise around, what is happening here? Why is this happening? Who is AVA? So we are going through those standard processes and appreciate the engagement work that we've had with county staff to make sure that is all a smooth process and those questions are getting answered. We can scroll down a little further, Adrian. Thank you. The next section is not a typical section. Over the last month or so, we've had a few updates or actions related to the federal administration and want to just provide a really brief update on some of those occurrences, mostly for awareness for this board and to indicate how we're monitoring things fairly closely. For those items that are environmental and energy oriented that may have some form of direct or indirect impact to us, wanted to just call those out for awareness. So the first is the endangerment finding repeal. This took place on February 12th, where the Trump administration issued a final rule rescinding the endangerment finding, which is a 17-year-old Environmental Protection Agency determination. And it provides legal justification for the federal government to regulate climate change causing greenhouse gas emissions under the Clean Air Act. The repeal concludes that the CAA gives the EPA authority to control only air pollution that causes direct health effects through local and regional exposure, and precludes the EPA from limiting GHG emissions that pose more indirect harm at the global level in the upper atmosphere. So this decision rescinds all the existing federal GHG emission standards for passenger cars, light duty trucks, motorcycles, buses, medium duty vehicles, and heavy duty vehicles and engines. Lastly, and importantly, 7 groups have sued the EPA over the repeal. So it does set up a likely lengthy court battle. This, of course, has some implications, not so much direct implications, given that we're in the state of California, of course, but there's reliance on this throughout the country. It's certainly going to be a murky process and time frame for how that continues to proceed, but wanted to call that out. The next bullet there is an interim prohibited foreign entity guidance. What this is related to is some of the IRS guidance related to the investment tax credit and the production tax credit, which are 2 key federal incentives that renewable energy projects receive. There are certain restrictions and prohibitions that impact the level of incentive that renewable energy projects can receive based off of where the materials are being manufactured and delivered from. I won't go into this in too much detail. It's a fairly technical item from a tax perspective, but fairly meaningful when you think about federal incentives and what flows to renewable energy, solar, wind projects as examples. And so this is something that we're watching closely. It doesn't provide full clarity on all aspects of that, but any updated guidance is always meaningful, and we're tracking it very closely. The last thing, if you can scroll a little further, Adrian, thank you. The Supreme Court tariff ruling on February 20th, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that a significant portion of the import tariffs imposed by the Trump administration since last January are unconstitutional. The ruling concludes that the president does not have the authority under a specific statute, the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, to impose tariffs without congressional approval. So this includes a lot of the tariffs imposed on Canada, Mexico, and China, and the Liberation Day tariffs imposed on all countries. It does not include tariffs applied to imports on steel, aluminum, and copper. In response, the president rescinded the tariffs and imposed instead new 10% temporary tariffs across the board. So it doesn't exactly change a lot of things, but it does add a lot of murkiness into what has historically taken place in terms of tariffs. More to come, of course. There's no certainty with these updates that I'm providing here, but simply highlighting things that create things for us to sort of track and work through as we're looking at some of our PPAs and some of the direct projects that we're putting on our balance sheet as well. Okay, you can keep on scrolling. This is the last section here. Even the community, we typically list a number of events. We are getting into events season here in the spring and the summer, which is always a very active time. So I'm not going to read off the entire list, of course, here, but we have listed everything over the next month in terms of events that we will be attending. You'll see certainly a larger concentration of events in unincorporated San Joaquin County as we're preparing for that launch there. I want to make sure that we are in front of customers there as often as possible. And again, really appreciate the engagement with San Joaquin County staff to help us identify those events that are best attended and will serve to be the most meaningful engagement for our customers and for AVA. That's it in the CO report. The last update I wanted to provide, which is not listed here, is one that's fresh, freshly new. So we launched our Smart Home Battery Incentive Program on Monday, 2 days ago. That is a program we've reviewed recently. It's many years in the making. That's the first phase of that launch. So going forward, new behind the meter residential battery installations are eligible to receive the incentives that we've been talking about. So it's really exciting to have that program open up. There are going to, of course, be future phases. So if you have an existing battery that wants to participate in the VPP aspects of our program, that's still a future phase that we need to prepare to launch for. So not every aspect of it is open yet. And we are continuing to work through the Community Resilience Hub incentive as well. We're working through the pilot projects to better assess those, working through technical evaluation there to make sure that we're determining the right resilience service eligibility criteria and some of the other requirements associated with that. So more phases to come. It's certainly far from done, but really excited to be able to start that program and launch the first phase of it. And that's it in the CEO report.
Great, thank you. Do we have any questions from the board of directors on this? Nope, CEO report. Any questions online? Nope, doesn't look like it. Thank you. I love the graphic, the poppy. It's really positive. It looks great. Okay, do we have any public comments on the CEO report?
Are there no hands raised in the room or online or in any of the remote locations?
Okay, great. Thank you. So we'll close public comment on the CEO report and move on to item number 9, the CAC report. And welcome. Indira.
Hello, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Indra Balgason. I'm the vice chair of the CAC, and I'm actually from Piedmont, so I represent the North. And I'm going to just read this because Mickey wrote it. So we had our meeting this Monday. It started at 6:07. We had no additional non-agenda comments from the public at the start of the meeting, and the minutes from the previous February 18th, 2026 meeting were approved with 1 abstention. The request was made to correct the spelling of Member Lutz's name, and Chair Sousa provided a report of the Board of Directors meeting on February 19th, 2026. There was a mention was made of the updated CEO December 2025 budget projection that showed a deficit of negative 133.7 million to a more optimistic deficit of 94.2 million for the January to June period. Member Hernandez asked whether the previously removed CARE and FARA customer credits might be revisited. Chair Sousa said that the board discussed this with some members suggesting wait to see if positive financial trends continue over the next 6 months before making decisions about restoring programs. Member Balgason and me spoke about the affordability ad hoc committee. We met with Paul Fenn and Handry Harris-Hanyo of Local Power. Paul's presentation focused on demand side reduction and distributed energy resource ownership opportunities for local residents, including dividend paying ownership shares, user owned voluntary distributed energy resources, and shared use facilitation among neighbors. However, the presentation left many hows unanswered, including implementation barriers, revenue models, microgrid construction costs, community cooperation mechanisms, and currently illegal electron sharing practices. The ad hoc is beginning to study the successful implementation and reach of projects in Ithaca, New York, and Ann Arbor, Michigan. And there are actually some articles that he provided if you would like those. Jessica Tovar gave a powerful public comment about how CCA 3.0, I guess I should say, he discussed CCA 1.0, 2.0, and he was trying to have CCA 3.0. And he says that CCA 3.0, or she says, further advances the concepts with AVA's original local development business plan, which 10 years ago highlighted local power entities and ownership. She mentioned that EBCE declined to purchase power from a Hayward project, and the power ended up being sold to PG&E. She urged AVA to move away from IOU investment patterns and to help our communities by investing in local development. Investments in local community jobs, especially as electrical demand rises, should be a high priority for AVA. In closing, agenda items for the meeting, requests were made for updates on the derailed program roadmap RFP process and revisions of AVA's policies asking about current movement towards selecting a project consultant. Another request was made regarding expanding meetings to other locations, highlighting a potential visit to Stockton or other parts of the AVA territory. CAC members supported this and also suggested a visit by AVA to Stockton's planning commissioner to discuss increasing AVA's awareness in expanded territories. Member Hernandez emphasized the importance of face-to-face community engagement beyond email communications to bolster AVA's presence and explain affordability programs and community investment. I'll reserve additional CAC reports for 2 items, both of them regarding legislative updates for later in the meeting.
Thank you, Ms. Balgason. Do we have any director questions for the CAC? Nope, any online? Well, thank you. Any public comments?
There are no hands raised in the attendee area, nor in the room,
Great.
nor in the remote locations.
Thank you. We'll close public comment. Thank you to the CAC Vice Chair. Is that right, Ms. Buckles? Yeah, thank you. Okay, great. Let's move on to item number 10, board member conference policy.
Hello, everyone. I'm John Perkins, Legal Director. I have what I think is a pretty brief but helpful item for you all. It was discussed at XCOM, so we've revised it a bit, and I'll walk you through the basics. So this is in response to the board's request from time to time to be able to reimburse expenses arising from conference attendance. Ava heard you wanted to make that available, and so we put together a draft policy that we ask you to adopt tonight that allows for that with two specific conferences, and you'll see those listed in the policy. These are, of course, the Cal CCA Annual Conference and the CAISO Stakeholder Symposium. It's a very simple, straightforward policy. It allows any director to attend these. The reimbursement is available for all reasonable expenses, including, quite specifically, internet, as requested by the XCOM. And there is one thing I'll be asking you to do today. The draft that was included here, unfortunately, provides the wrong tool for reimbursement. It lists Ironclad. We'll be using RAMP, which is even easier to use. So I'm happy to take any questions you might have.
Thank you. Any director questions on this? Director, I'm trying, sorry, it just like took me a second. Yeah.
You're fine. Thank you, Madam Presiding Chair. And my question is, this might be either for you or maybe even for the presiding chair, but was the intent of the policy under discussion, would it solely limit potential reimbursements to those two conferences, or would there be an opportunity if someone wanted to bring up participation at a different mission-aligned conference to bring that up for board discussion and possible action?
Thank you. I think maybe Howard, you could answer that question.
Yeah.
Or John. Mhm.
The way the policy is set up is that it identifies two explicit conferences. And so there's, for the policy, there's no explicit avenue to request conferences outside of those two. Certainly, there's always an opportunity to amend that list of conferences, and that would be a board policy item.
Yeah, I mean, I can also, the discussion during the XCOM committee, I mean, if anyone else wants to chime in on this one, but yeah, I think the idea was there have been maybe requests over time, and we were trying to sort of kind of clarify what the reimbursement was for. So yeah, to Howard's point, I mean, there was discussion that what if there were some other things that came up, and so, right, I mean, we talked about like leaving it open for future conferences, right? Director Balch, if you remember the discussion, but, and you want to chime in, but yeah, it was to sort of come up with these two specific things that really went to sort of giving us what we need on the board, and should other things come up in the future, we can have a discussion. Did I summarize that?
Yeah, thank you through the Madam Presiding Chair. So during my time as chair of AVA, there was a few members that had different conferences that came up at different times. So the policy kind of got, I don't want to say started there, but the concept of one got started there. And this is now the current administration carrying it through, I guess I'll say. So XCON beat it up pretty well because we were trying to figure out, I got dinged for internet at the US Mayor's Conference by my own city. So I apparently upgraded to a faster internet, but trying to be flexible, but also for AVA, which is a JPA mission aligned. And that's where I think the two came up as the starting point. And then see how this runs was, I think, I don't want to speak for everyone, but I think that was the concept, and then go from there and expand if we thought appropriate in the future.
Yeah. Any other questions on that one? Oh, thank you. Yeah. Director Tregi, are you satisfied with that answer?
Yeah.
Okay.
For now,
Great.
I had a GSA related question, actually. I mean, this looks like a reasonable reimbursement. I was a Fed for 14 years and under different administrations. Should the GSA policy change in a weird direction. Is this a pointer to whatever GSA policy is on file, or how would we deal with such a situation?
Yeah, John or Howard, and then.
I can take that one if you like, Howard. So it points to whatever's live at the time. And in terms of the question, what if it goes sideways is what I'm hearing. That's not something we can easily plan for. However, what this does not say is you have to do what the GSA says. It's using it as a basis. So it's a reference point. It's the reasonableness standard that matters. So if it wasn't out of line with what we expected, with what other members were reimbursing, we don't have to rely on the GSA specifically, but for a very long time, of course, it's been a reliable standard.
Thank you.
Thank you. Director Cower, you had your hand up. Did you want to make a comment still?
Thank you, Chair. I was wondering if maybe I'm missing this in the materials. Was there an estimated annual fiscal impact if all directors utilized the two conference allowance?
So we did not include that in any of this paperwork, but a rough look, I recall it being under $60,000 annually, roughly, but we didn't do a very specific deep dive into that just simply because we didn't know who was going to choose to reimburse what.
Yeah, I would just add on that point. Historically, we've seen significant variability with attendance at these types of conferences, anywhere from 0 to 8 or 10 different members attending. The CalCCA conference also, some years they basically alternate Northern California and Southern California, so travel expenses are highly variable. So we did do some internal analysis on that, but didn't feel like it was necessarily useful here to say that this is a reliable number. We will certainly budget accordingly, which is how we sort of accounted for it. And fortunately, we have some opportunity to do that depending on knowing the location of it going into the year and such.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from directors? Anyone online? Okay, great. Then do we have any public comments on this?
There are no hands raised in the attendee area, in the room,
Okay,
or in the remote locations.
thank you. We'll close public comment, and this is an action item, right? So, thank you. Does the CAC have any comments on this item, Ms. Wilkinson?
I do know that one of the members of the CAC does want to attend the CalCCA meeting, so I don't know if that would apply, but it's come up at our meetings.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think Director Belcher.
Yeah, thank you. So that was specifically asked at the executive committee, and I believe it's actually prohibited because they're not elected members, and we would have to investigate the legality of it in the future. So that was one of the reasons why the executive committee kind of constrained it to the policy outline. Right, John.
I would just add, it does bear investigation. I wouldn't want to say prohibited, but it requires investigation.
Yeah, there was definitely a discussion about it, and we talked about a way to do it in the future. So I think that's a discussion still to be had. It's still on the table, I guess I should say. Sure, go ahead.
One of the things that we were discussing is, one of the amazing things about AVA is, I know I'm being biased, the CEAC. And I think it'd be great if we presented, someone from us, AVA, presented about how it's working, so that, because I don't know if all the other CCAs have a CAC like we do. So, I mean, I'm just saying, even kind of as a tangential thing, that even if we can't go as a attendee or one person, but maybe to present.
Thank you. Okay, so no more questions. So this is an action item, right? So we're looking for a motion to
With the
adopt this.
request that you amend it to use RAMP instead of Ironclad.
Rampant, okay.
Thank you.
So we're looking for an action item to adopt the conference expenditures reimbursement policy for AVA directors with the one change that it's using rampant instead of Ironclad. Thank you. Yes, do I have a motion to accept that?
So moved. Stock.
Thank you. Thank you, Flower. Oh, and seconded by Director Barrios. Okay. But Director Chergub, did you have a comment on this?
Yeah, I wanted to see if it might be possible, and I don't know. I don't necessarily want to make an amendment to the motion, but something to clarify that nothing shall preclude the board from choosing to approve other conferences deemed by the board to be mission aligned. So I'm not asking for to add other, I wouldn't even know what those other conferences might be, but I just would not want the interpretation of this policy to imply that we can never go to the board and consider adding other conferences subject to board approval.
Yeah, thank you. And what, I mean, how, I'm not sure, right? Because we're just approving this one. It doesn't mean that it doesn't sort of preclude anything, but how would you characterize that?
I mean, I think with any policy, it's implied that the policy stipulates how we would, sort of move forward and operationalize these details, and any policy can be amended by the board. And so this can certainly be revisited just as any policy is. So I don't know that, I looked a little at the job. I don't know that that explicit statement is necessary because I think it's implicit that all of our policy documents may be amended at time to time.
And I can confirm that's correct. Otherwise, you would be limiting yourself. You'd be limiting future boards. So it's implicitly true that you can add by action of the board.
Okay, thank you. We have a first and a second on the motion, and we need to call roll.
Thank you very much. Stockton,
Yes.
Livermore,
Yes.
Alameda County,
Aye.
Albany,
Yep.
Berkeley,
Aye.
Dublin,
Aye.
Emeryville,
Aye.
Fremont, Hayward,
Aye.
Lathrop, Livermore, excuse me, not Livermore, my apologies.
Aye.
Thank you. Newark,
Aye.
Oakland,
Aye.
Pleasanton,
Aye.
San Joaquin County,
Yes.
Tracy,
Yes.
Union City,
Aye.
San Leandro, excuse me, my apologies, and Piedmont.
Aye.
The motion is approved.
Thank you. Thanks for your work on this, John. Okay, let's move on to item number 11, the 2026 California Legislative Position Recommendations.
Thank you, Adrian. My name is Sam Sadel. I lead the legislative work here at AVA. We are going to be presenting two items today. Our first item is on legislative recommendations for two bills. The second item is on an overview more broadly of what's happening in Sacramento. We will then come back with proposed legislative positions on a subset of those bills next month. So I want to make sure there are two items. We're moving first with the position recommendations. But before I actually dig into this, I want to say it's been a while since I've spoken with all of you. I wanted to thank board members, 3 board members who joined us up in Sacramento for Lobby Day. It was wonderful to have you there. I also wanted to introduce you all to Mandy Isaacs-Lee, who is sitting back here. Many of you might have known Dan, who was our longtime lobbyist in Sacramento. Dan has since left the practice, and we're now been working with his partner. They've been partnered working for years together. So we're really happy to have Mandy on board as our full-time partner up there in Sacramento. Great. I'll now jump into it. If you go to the next slide, please. I feel like I don't need to give you all background on the power charge and difference adjustment. Obviously, we've been talking about this a lot over the last few weeks and months. I'll keep it very short. In late 2025, the CPUC staff asserted that the RA market price benchmarks were flawed and needed a quick remedy. This was late February 2025. They thought about it in March, they thought about it in April, and they came back in May and said, these are the new RA NPBs. So it took 2 months to go from an initial to a proposal. This was very quick by the terms of the PUC. Come June, the PUC formally adopted these recommendations. And this is what we have been grappling with all year as you looked at your budgets and the processes. Now, what we're talking about here is not changes to the PUC, to the PCIA, but about transparency. At core, from the very beginning, from February, we immediately put in a data request to find out what information the PUC staff was relying on when they made this initial recommendation. And we were delayed 17 times in receiving that information. In fact, earlier this week, we received the first little bit, but we still have a lot more left to go. So As part of this, we can't forecast, we can't look backwards and we can't look forwards. And especially with tracks 2 and 3 ongoing, this has become a more urgent process. So if you go to the next slide. So in response to this, we are working with Cal CCA on bringing forward AB 1761. This is the official summary, and what AB 1761 would do is it's been brought forward by Assemblymember Rogers, who I should note is a former colleague of yours and a former board member at Sonoma Clean Power. He's now a member of the State Assembly, and he's authoring this bill. Cal CCA is the official listed sponsor of this bill. What this would do would require the release of the data underlying any proposal or analysis. It would require this data that was provided by an IOU, PUC staff, or any other party, and would require this data to be released that informed any change imposed on LSE customers to recover the cost of contracts. So data that comes in, no matter where it comes from, if it impacts the cost, the coverage of these contracts would then be shared. I should note, however, it would be made available to any load serving entity like AVA or ratepayer advocate through a third party. It would not require market sensitive data to be shared directly with the LSE. And the third party would be able to work with this information to ensure that there are no competitiveness impacts. So why does this matter? This would allow our team to better review the data, ensure it's correct, and plan for the future PCIA and how we can address the rate impacts looking forward, especially in the track 2 and 3 ongoing processes at the PUC. So who supports it? Obviously, Cal CCA supports it. Most of the CCAs in the state support it. The only ones that haven't are the ones that are still going through this process like we are. Opposition, Southern California Edison and SDG&E. Interestingly enough, from Edison's perspective, their opposition is rooted in, you don't need this information, you already have this data, there's a process for you to get it. Clearly, we don't have all the information that is helpful, and we believe this would help us in this process. San Diego Gas and Electric says this would be expensive and burdensome to comply with. So they're sort of arguing in crosswise in their arguments against 1761. Staff is proposing that you support this. That is the request that we're bringing forward with you today. As a last minute update, earlier today, Howard and I were up in Sacramento to meet with members on this, and the bill passed out of the Assembly Utility and Energy Committee 10-0. Okay. So this is our request that you support this bill, and I assume Chair, did you want to get to the motions one at a time or after the two of them?
We'll do it.
After. Okay, thank you. Next slide then. So we move from the PCIA to RA transactability. And I'll go very quickly here. In 2025, the PUC completed a 3-year process of transitioning from the old compliance regime to the new hourly RA compliance regime. Starting when this began in 2022, our staff raised the issue that if you're moving toward a new compliance regime of hourly compliance, we needed to be able to have some transactability so that compliance could match operational requirements. This was not heeded, and we ended up in a situation today where we're having to comply with one standard, but we can only transact with another standard. And this bill, that you'll see in a moment, was the response to that. But what that means is that LSEs are forced to over-comply and buy more RA than is needed to be compliant. And it costs at a rough cost, according to Cal CCA, of $180 million per year. This is using 2025 dollars and numbers. In fact, earlier this year, the PUC acknowledged that allowing our RA transactability would save customers money, but that it wasn't ready yet to allow it. So last year, RA transactability from a legislative perspective there was an attempt by Cal CCA to add it into other ongoing legislative processes. That was unsuccessful. And so this year we have worked with Cal CCA to develop an actual bill. And if you go to the next slide. So that bill is SB 1138, which would require the CPUC to allow transactability on RA obligations between LSEs. It would cap that at no more than 25% of an LSE's compliance portfolio. They must be, and then the key requirement here is it must be able to make those transactions in the same unit of time as the compliance obligations. So if you have an hourly compliance obligation, you have to be able to transact in that hourly time frame. This is supported by CalCCA. We have not yet brought third parties on to support this. It's a highly technical question. And so it's a little more, we're finding we having to educate a lot of people from the ground up on this issue. But you should note there's also no opposition. And so including the IOUs, no one has yet opposed this bill. Our proposal as staff is that you support this. We've been part of this process since the very beginning, and we look forward to an aye vote. Thank you.
Can I just make two quick comments? I just wanted to note that these two bills are the first CalCCA sponsored bills, and I just want to highlight that that's a great reflection of our industry, both in terms of sort of the standing that we have with legislators, and I think that's as evidence in the lobby day efforts that some of our board members have participated in, and certainly also just a reflection of the CCAs all really working together cohesively to come up with some important energy affordability oriented bills that we think will have some impact. I had the opportunity, as Sam noted, to testify today in front of the assembly, and it was great to just see the level of support when you see 20 people line up in support of your bill, and there is no line in the opposition. So it's obviously it's a very good indication. We're still early in the session. There's a lot to be done still, but I just think it's very exciting and worth highlighting those efforts and kind of where we are as an industry in order to progress and continue to make impact within the legislature, at least.
Great, thank you. Let's go to Director's Court. I'm going to go online this time first. Director Brown, I see you have your hand up.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Thank you, Sam, for the report. And I want to say, Howard, you kind of answered my question, kind of given the, prior to me stepping into this role as council member, I spent the last 3 years working in the legislature. And so kind of my processes when it comes to examining some of the state legislation is to check for the committee completed like bill analysis that kind of takes place behind the scenes from like the attorneys there, and then also like it actually being scheduled and heard by the committee members. And I think what I found on both of these items was that we're very early on in kind of the process, like in the legislature, where we begin to see more community groups kind of like weigh in on some of these important bills, and then also to see if there's any opposition. So just to kind of reiterate, Howard, which item was heard today?
AB 1761.
1761.
PCI transparency bill.
Okay, excellent. And so for that one, there was no opposition.
The SDG&E, as was listed in the slide, SDG&E and SCE did oppose. What I was referring to is sort of the following the testimony, they asked for any additional opposition or support.
I see. And then for SB 1138, that item actually hasn't been scheduled yet in the on the Senate side. Is that correct?
No, it is not. We expect the scheduling to be sometime likely in the second half of April.
In April. Okay, excellent. Thank you so much.
One quick comment, just I should know, because you remind me of this. I want to call out that these two bills, us bringing these forward for approval at this stage outside of the larger portfolio of bills, is unique. And I want to just clarify the reason for that, of course, is because these are two CalCCA sponsored bills. So we want to be out there formally supporting this as early as we can. We did preview these at MRL with an indication that we're bringing them forward for action and approval. And of course, the other bigger portfolio of bills are more standard processes to review that broadly with the entire board and then bring this forward with proposed recommendations.
Okay, great. Thank you. Director Blower.
I just want to say I appreciate the presentation. I think this one seems like a no-brainer. I'd like to make a motion to approve the staff recommendation.
All right, hold on 1 second, because we have to get public comment before we get to motions, Director. So hold your motion and I'll get back to you when we get there. Right. Thank you. Any other comments online? No. Any other in the room? Yes. Wait, sorry. No, I forgot your last.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah.
Hi, Sam. John from Dublin. Just a couple of clarifying questions with regard to the bill. Mm-hmm. So I heard that we're still fairly early with it. And my concerns are more about the data itself. the consumption, the transmission thereof, the residency of that information. Can you provide a little bit of clarity to me on where we think we're going to go with that eventually, in terms of the use of the data, access to the data, and where it will reside?
The PCIA piece of it. Yeah. So I can speak to the legislation. The legislation envisions the idea that all of the data that is considered by the PUC staff for this determination would then be shared with LSEs and ratepayer advocates through a process by which we work with a third party that would ensure that that data is not competitive and that that data is not subject to sort of additional restrictions. I should note there already are processes that if the data is shared via the PUC with AVA. And so this would utilize those existing processes and those existing agreements and passageways of data from IOUs and PUC through the PUC through to us. So it wouldn't create a whole new data sharing structure. It would tap into existing data sharing structures and just make it clear that data that informs the PCIA analysis would be included in that process. Is that
Okay,
helpful?
I think I understand. There are multiple layers to
Yes.
the protection of the data.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Very good.
Of course.
Then the second question I have for you is, what if you could just inform me, what is the process for the destruction of the data upon completion and use thereof?
I actually do not know, and I would have to get back to you on that. I'll follow up with you.
Do we have a policy for that? Okay. Yes, if you wouldn't mind. Thank you.
I just want to note, to make sure this is clear, this is a flow of data that is coming from the IOUs and the CPUC. So this is not AVA specific data that is being put out there. So right now, there's very one-sided information where the IOUs have that information, data transactions, pricing information that is used to meaningfully set the PCIA annually. And so we're talking about the transparency of that data being out there so that CCAs can advocate effectively for our customers, forecast appropriately, and look at what the PCI is doing.
Okay. No, I don't object to getting it. It's just, what do we do with it once we're done with it? Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank
I
you,
can follow
Director.
up and find out for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Murata. Director Trego.
Thank you. Yeah, just wanted to echo a great job. Congratulations on getting this, one of the bills out of first committee. I seldom see energy bills get no opposition. So one of the benefits of actually doing this early. I think you provided some additional information since we looked at this at MOL, including the support and oppose list. I was just curious because normally I see the IOUs come in together in opposition to something. I don't see PG&E on here. Is this by design, or do you anticipate they might? Well, I don't know. How much do you want to speculate? But it seemed interesting that they're missing on the opposed list. And can you speak to that?
Thank you for giving me the out not to speculate. We do not know. PG&E is not registered opposition to this bill. And I should note from the hearing today, San Diego Gas and Electric is particularly interested in a certain section of the bill and felt it sounded like there's movement towards some agreement between the chair, the committee, and SDG&E that some of the committee amendments might be addressing their concerns. So I think we're increasingly optimistic with the process.
So what I'm hearing you say is they might not be coordinating here in opposition. Let's hope.
Thank you,
Okay.
Director Trego.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Director Trego. Any other questions? Oh, wait, anyone else in the room right now? I will come back to the CAC. Let me finish the directors. Thank you. Director Brown.
Excellent. I just kind of got a question from what Sam mentioned. So just for clarity, can you walk me through the process as far as if there's any potential amendments that will be coming on this, on the one that was heard today?
Yeah, thank you, Director Brown. There will be amendments coming out of the Assembly Energy and Utility and Energies Committee. CalCCA and others are in support of those amendments. The amendments have been negotiated, and so that we feel very positive that this will keep it moving in the right direction. We have not heard about any other amendments other than the committee amendments that are yet have come to the forefront.
Okay, excellent. And then I guess one last question. Where is it heading after today's committee?
It will head forward. It still has to move through the rest of the assembly process before it moves over to the Senate.
Okay, but appropriations, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go to public comment, and then when I come back, I'll ask the CAC. Do we have any public comment on this item?
There are no hands raised in the attendee area in the room or at the remote locations.
Thank you. We'll close public comment, and if the CAC has any comments on this, thank you.
I just wanted to let you know that the CAC expressed strong support for the transparency and cost-saving measures in both bills. A public commenter, Dohee Kim from Local Clean Energy Alliance, voiced support for both bills, emphasizing the importance of transparency for ratepayers and the flexibility benefits of hourly RA trading. We had a motion from Member Weiner, who moved to support both AB 1761 and SB 1138. Member Pacheco seconded the motion, and the motion passed unanimously with all members voting strongly in favor, and we're appreciative of the legislative team's efforts.
Great, thank you. Okay, so we have an action item for the board to support the staff recommendation for AB 1761 and SB 1138. And we have Director Blauer, if you want to make your motion again.
So moved.
Great.
Second.
A second by Director Shrego. Thank you. Any discussion on the matter? Nope. Okay, great. Can we get a vote?
Thank you. Stockton,
Aye.
Berkeley,
Aye.
Alameda County,
Aye.
Albany,
Yep.
Dublin,
Aye.
Emeryville,
Aye.
Fremont, Hayward,
Aye.
Lathrop, Livermore, Newark,
Aye.
Oakland,
Aye.
Pleasanton,
Aye.
San Joaquin County,
Yes.
Tracy,
Aye.
Union City,
Aye.
San Leandro, Piedmont.
Aye.
Motion is approved.
Thank you. And thank you, Sam. And you're going to stick with us for the next item. Is that right?
Yep.
Great. Thank you. Okay, so our next item, item 12, the California Legislative Preview.
Perfect. Well, thank you again for your time. We're excited to move forward with this. So that was the two bills that we felt very confident. We were very excited to bring to the board early, given those were Cal CCA sponsored bills. Now we're going to take a little bit of time to look more broadly at what is moving in California in the state legislature these days and what kind of conversation we can expect over the coming months. Our intention is to complete our cross-functional analysis and come back to you all with a first round of I guess technically it will be a second round of legislative positions at the April board meeting. We, of course, things will continue to change and can come back to you later on in session if there are additional new bills that we would like you to review. I'll be joined in this presentation by my two colleagues, Don McFurria and Kendall Downey, who are going to take certain portions of this. We are your legislative team, and so we each have some subject matter that we'll be speaking to over the course of the next little while. Perfect. Next slide, please. So here's where we are in the legislative timeline. You don't need to go deeply on this, but should give you some sense. We are through bill introduction deadline, and we are moving forward towards committee deadline, appropriations deadline. And then when we get to June, we will move quickly into the budget process. The governor's May revise will come out, and then we'll go barreling towards the June 15th budget deadline. After that, we will have a swap. Bills that were made out of the assembly will move to the Senate to the assembly, and we'll do this whole process all over again. And it will come to an end at the end of August, which is the deadline for second house, and the end of September, which is the deadline for the governors to sign or veto bills. Note, this is earlier than last year's schedule because of the election. Everything gets pushed up a little bit. One thing that we did not include in here, there will be a series of budget trailer bills, which will likely happen between June 15th and the end of August. So the budget will get fixed by June 15th, and then the budget trailer process will move forward after that. All right, next slide. So this year, there were roughly 1,800 bills introduced to the legislature. That is in addition to a number of bills that were carried over from last year. I should note, however, that 1,800 is the lowest number in the past 20 years. So while it feels like a lot, it's actually not very many. We'll take it. Of these, roughly 600 or so are what we call spot or intent of legislature bills, meaning that they are bills that are sort of either on a subject matter or generally we want to do this, but we don't have all that information. Every day we are getting more details in those spot and intent of legislature bills. So there's fewer and fewer of those and more with real information, which is great. It lets us do our job as we move forward. Of these 1,800 bills or so, 80 of them are generally related to what we do. They're related to the Joint Powers Agreement, to electrical price stability, economic benefits, greenhouse gas emissions, jobs creation, and the such. So there are 80 bills that we're going to keep an eye on over the course of the year to see where they end up, where they move, and how they move through the process. Next slide, please. So from those 80 bills, today we're going to walk through a subset of those, 33 bills. These are 33 bills where we are, so since this was done, we have now had 4 more bills move from spot to text. So it's actually 37, 30 set because in the last 2 days, things have shifted. So 37 bills that we're going to be looking at. And we're working cross-functionally with our partners in the agency, with CalCCA and within the agency of CalCCA, and then of course with you all, with the MRL and CAC to get your opinions on these processes. We'll see more of them. So know that this is not everything that we're looking at the moment. Next slide. Okay, so from these 33 bills, we're digging into each of them. We will then come back to you in the April board meeting with a certain number, likely less than 33. And that is really bills that meet these 3 criteria. They directly impact our work. They support the JPA's vision and have broad-based support, or our perspective has specific resonance with key decision makers that can impact. So when a bill meets one of those 3 categories, that's when we're going to come to you and say, hey, we think it's important that we take a position on this bill and take action. Next slide. Okay, so that was all prelude. And now we're going to jump into the bulk of the presentation, the bulk of our work. Of these bills, this is the beginning of the 33 bills. We're not going to go into each bill specifically. We're thinking about this. What we want to provide to you all is an understanding of what the conversation is in Sacramento around these various topics, and then which bills are taking slightly different approaches for how to solve that challenge. So as we look forward to your thoughts, and we're going to start here. So first, we all know California has the 2nd highest electricity rates in the country after Hawaii. This has not escaped the view of legislators. They are very much paying attention to this. And as we look at how the affordability bills are moving, we're looking at 2 slightly different approaches. There's the approach that says we're going to get to rate affordability through changing the PUC, what it considers in rate approvals, what the effect of those rate approvals are. And then we're also looking at bills that are on the transmission side. How do we drive down the cost of transmission? You should note, this all takes place in a context that last year, the legislature passed SB 254, which was a broad affordability package. That was signed by the governor. That is still moving through the process. That's not complete. There are many pieces of that are still coming into effect. So we're seeing a slightly less aggressive push this year because of that large bill last year, although we just learned today that there's another bill that will take another broad approach. So like I said, these conversations are constantly shifting. So I'll start on the left side here, which is rate affordability. Within this, on the cost consideration, we have AB 1975 from Schultz, which is focused on what the PUC has to consider when it looks at cost approvals. So in this case, it says you must consider infrastructure spending in your cost approvals. And then as the other side, AB 2611 and SB 924 are on the output side. So you must consider affordability in the amount of costs that you approve. You must consider hardship in the amount of costs you approve. So taking two slightly different approaches to this. We also have AB 2266, which is looking at RA values, as well as, I should note, AB 2463 from Chair Petrie Norris, which would require the PUC to study return on equity. This is a theme we're seeing through a number of bills, which is looking at and analyzing the IOU's return on equity for their infrastructure work. All right. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Dominic, who's going to dig into the transmission side of the house.
Sure. Thanks, Sam. Again, everyone, Dominic Faria, work with Sam on our public policy team here at ABA. I will, so as Sam indicated, there are many ways in which the legislature is trying to sort of tackle this issue of affordability. And I'll talk a little bit about doing so from the side of transmission and distribution. So major delays in building out or improving grid infrastructure. It's a key contributor to rising build costs and also affects reliability. So when projects don't interconnect on time or to serve customers, or when the grid lacks enough transmission to deliver those electrons to customers, prices go up. There are many reasons why this is happening, including supply chain constraints and backlogs, lengthy permitting requirements, or slow or outdated planning processes. So I'll touch on a few of these bills here. AB 2493 is really focused on an accountability measure. It would require each investor-owned utility to retain an independent third-party auditor to review the IOU's transmission and interconnection-related submissions to the CPUC and sort of track progress in completing those network upgrades. AB 2239 is also has an accountability component, but it's also about getting things done more quickly in certain priority areas. It would allow for expedited energy project development in designated areas with limited infrastructure, for example. But it also imposed penalties on utilities for failing to meet energization timelines and targets connecting things to the grid. And finally, I'll talk about AB 2516. Again, a different approach altogether. This is the California Grid Manufacturing Initiative. It's aimed at addressing the supply chain delay issue, and it would allow the state to aggregate demand for critical energy components like transformers and switchboards, and coordinate their procurement and incentivize in-state manufacturing on behalf of utilities. It also critically would require investor-owned utilities and publicly owned utilities to buy components procured by the state through this program. We can go to the next slide. I'll pass it off to Kendall.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Dominic and Sam, for the entire presentation, as well as the board members for your attendance. I know that this is a particular issue that most of us are paying attention to, so I wanted to provide a brief overview prior to getting into each and every bill and how we're kind of bucketing and organizing that and our analysis. So as many of us are aware, across California and nationally, there's been a rapid increase in proposed data center development. At the same time, California's electric system is already undergoing a major transition with the electrification of transportation, building decarbonization, and the retirement of fossil generation, all while affordability concerns continue to rise. In response to these concerns, policymakers are increasingly asking the same question. How do we accommodate these oncoming large loads without shifting costs onto existing non-benefiting ratepayers or creating reliability risks for the grid? The bills listed here represent a spectrum of legislative approaches aimed at addressing that very challenge. Legislators are trying to answer some primary concerns, such as how do we dictate the thresholds of these large loads? As you can see, the approaches here range in sizes varying from 20 megawatts to 75 megawatts, or even how we define what a data center facility is. How do we ensure those costs are insulated from other customers while also preserving our statewide climate goals? Policymakers and stakeholders alike have yet to identify the silver bullet. Across these proposals, the themes that we here at AVA are paying close attention to are: 1, the prevention of cost shifts onto existing non-benefiting ratepayers; 2, protecting grid reliability, including our climate policy goals across the state of California; 3, improving transparency around large load development, including the prevention of stranded procurement risk for load-serving entities like AVA and other CCAs; and 4, ensuring these new frameworks preserve customer choice and CCA participation. So starting with our first bucket, preventing cost shifts to existing ratepayers, a goal that we see addressed in AB 2383, SB 886, and SB 78, conveniently lightly highlighted on the bottom of the screen. All three of these bills represent a similar approach, and that they would necessitate the development of a new tariff for these loads, but they vary in from being more consumer protective versus more pro-development. On one hand, SB 886 by Senator Padilla includes every single cost incurred to serve these loads, whereas AB 2383 by some of the members of BERT considers costs such as transmission upgrades as a system-wide benefit. Therefore, costs would be shared among all quote-unquote benefiting ratepayers. So the claim for this approach is that by tracking all or some of those costs incurred to serve these customers, you can then prevent those costs from falling upon other ratepayers unintentionally and having them bear that responsibility. In our second bucket, protecting grid reliability, including our Climate California policy goals, we see this specifically addressed in SB 887, also introduced by Senator Padilla. This would remove the CEQA exemption for data centers, including provisions intended to prevent increases in fossil fuel consumption and require significant energy storage capacity relative to the facility's peak energy demand. This bill also addresses generation and procurement costs incurred, a key issue for CCAs in terms of forward-looking procurement obligations such as resource adequacy. As we see these customers come online, it is essential that we are not left long or short on these resources in order to serve these customers. Again, this approach, as we see such rapid development and amount of load growth in the state, legislators are trying to be sure that these loads don't inhibit or impede the state's ability to meet its target climate goals. In our third bucket, improving transparency around large load development, we see this demonstrated in both AB 1577 by Rebecca Bauer-Kahan. We also see this in latter portions of SB 978 by Senator Perez. Both of these bills are attempting to improve the state's visibility into where new large loads are being proposed, how quickly they may come online, and how they may affect the electric grid based on their water and energy consumption. The thesis of transparency here is that the state needs to be first made aware of all the consumption and impacts related to data centers in order to better plan and properly address any issues we may see as a result of data center growth. Our final and fourth bucket, ensuring these new frameworks preserve customer choice and CCA participation. We do see this issue come up several times in the bills aiming to establish a new large load tariff, with language that may unintentionally but heavily imply that generation would be or will be served by a designated electrical corporation rather than a CCA. At AVA, and in collaboration as well with our trade association at CalCCA, we are advocating regularly in Sacramento to protect our role as the default and generation provider while legislation develops throughout session. We are also engaged in a Rule 30 proceeding at the PUC in order to protect community choice and ensure adequate information sharing. This is still a rapidly evolving policy conversation, and we do expect that this will evolve both at the legislature and at the PUC to continue reflecting how California approaches large load growth over the next several years. Do you mind switching to the next slide? I know that was a lot on one side. So if you do comb through the language, specifically in all three of those bills previously mentioned, sorry. Oh yeah, so we're good. On all of those three bills that I previously mentioned, establishing a new large load tariff, that being SB 886, SB 978, and AB 2383, you'll see that several of those bills, at least the ones that have been heard in their relevant committees and amended, specifically call out the exclusion of industrial loads that are electrifying loads from those large load tariffs. The two bills we're seeing and tracking on this approach this issue from the perspective of industrial large load decarbonization. These types of bills being SB 943 by Senator Becker and SB 1168 by Senator McNerney address and highlight a broader policy tension in the state that we are working through, which is how do we encourage large-scale electrification and economic development while ensuring that the costs of serving these very large loads are allocated fairly and transparently across the system. SB 943 is focused on making electrification more viable for these large load industrial facilities, customers such as cement plants, steel production, food processing, etc., all who currently heavily rely on fossil fuels. The bill directly directs the PUC to examine how electricity rates are structured for these loads, particularly with the role of non-bypassable charges, which includes PCIA, wildfire funds, public purpose funds as well, which can make electricity significantly more expensive than fossil fuels for certain industrial processes. the policy idea here is that if California wants heavy industry to electrify, the electricity price signal needs to better reflect the actual cost of serving these loads. On the other hand, SB 1168 approaches the issue from a different angle. So rather than changing electricity pricing to encourage electrification, this bill proposes a new surcharge on natural gas consumption associated with data centers specifically. So different than SB 943, which specifically says if there are existing industrial load customers that are choosing and opting to electrify and retire their fossil fuel, or not retire, but no longer use fossil fuel generation, that specific load will be exempt from large load tariffs and caps the NBC ratio, as well as amends the transmission access charge. Whereas SB 1168 by McNerney specifically targets data centers that are currently using or will use fossil fuels, and tacking on a surcharge onto their bill. Those funds from that surcharge would then be used to support low-income programs such as CARE and FARA. So the general concept here is that as those very large loads grow, they should also be contributing towards addressing broader affordability pressures, particularly with low-income programs and customers. And with that, I'll go ahead and pass it back to my other colleague, Dominic. Thank you.
Thanks, Kendall. So stepping away from all the large load bills that we have this year that we're sifting through, talk a little bit about some of the bills that are dealing with decarbonization on utility scale. So some of the generation projects within the state. I'll touch on two of these specifically. AB 1156 from Assemblymember Wicks. It's more about making it easier for the development of specifically solar and storage on agricultural land. So it adjusts an existing solar use easement statute, and the intent here is to help the state meet its clean energy goals by making it easier for farmers to temporarily convert farmland that currently lacks access to enough water to be productive, and converting that for use for solar and storage. And specifically, especially as the state faces growing water insecurity. So trying to use one crisis to sort of help another. The other side, we have SB 1295, which would be more of the state telling LSEs to procure a certain amount of resources. In this case, this would be specifically for energy storage, and it asks for 40 gigawatts by 2040. And again, LSEs would be assigned a percentage of that as we get to that goal. So a couple different approaches on that issue. We can go to the next slide, Adrian. And I'll talk about distributed energy resources in the promoting local development issue area that we are looking at these bills from. So I talked to you just about large scale generation, but what about resources cited on the customer side of the meter? We have a few bills here that deal with distributed energy resources, specifically through the lens of making it easier for folks to adopt certain electric appliances, and one that's more of a budget bill, and I'll touch on that in a second. So we have two related bills at the top left here, if you can squint. SB 868 would exempt plug-in or balcony solar systems that meet certain requirements from all interconnection requirements in the state and from utilities. While AB 2612, slightly different approach, but would require the State Building Standards Commission to adopt mandatory standards for electrical circuits to enable these systems in buildings within the state. SB 222 below that, also from Senator Wiener, deals with electric heat pump water heaters and HVAC systems, specifically by requiring local governments to streamline permitting for installing these systems and capping fees on permits. Note that this bill is very similar to a bill that this board saw last year and took a support position on. That was SB 282, also from Senator Wiener. That did not pass the legislature last year, so this is an attempt to sort of revisit that bill with some slight changes to it. And finally, as I mentioned, there's another budget bill that we're tracking, which deals with a program that's designed to sort of compensate participating customers with batteries to provide backup power to the state in certain times of emergency. So this one would essentially transfer unused money from one program and put it onto another known as DSGS, the Demand Side Grid Support Program. So with that, I'll pass it over to Sam, back to Sam to bring us home.
Thanks, Dominic and Kendall. Quickly, as we move over towards transportation electrification, you can see here that there are two primary areas that we're talking about. One is e-bikes, the other is electric vehicles. On the e-bike side, there are two approaches, AB 1942 from Assemblymember Bauer Cahan which would require class 2 and 3 vehicles, e-bikes, class 2 and 3 e-bikes, excuse me, to be registered with the DMV and plated. This would apply to bicycles that are purchased as part of the Ava Bike Electric program. Roughly 60% of the vehicles that are purchased through the program are eligible for our class 2 or 3 vehicles. And so that would have an impact on the program. Though I should note the program is scheduled to be complete at the end of the year, and this bill would not take effect until January of next year. The slightly other approach to this is SB 1167 from Senator Blakespear. Rather than requiring class 2 and 3 e-bikes to be registered, it would instead require that when someone buys a bicycle that is not class 2 or 3, so likely an electric moped or there's different kinds of vehicles, things that fall outside of the class 1, 2, and 3 structure, it requires them to be notified that that vehicle is in fact not an e-bike. And so rather than addressing changes to the e-bike program, which AB 1942 does, it instead attempts to say what is not part of the program and make that more clear for California purchasers. Two slightly different approaches. Similarly, on electric vehicles, there are two slightly different approaches. SB 1215 from Senator Cortese would require IOUs to triple the number of level 2 and 3 chargers that they have already installed in multifamily homes. Multifamily housing, excuse me. They're currently 9,000 or so ports that have been installed in multifamily housing in the state by the 3 IOUs. This would require them to triple that and then recover the funds through operations and maintenance, not through shareholders. The other side of that, the last one is SB 1282 from Senator Becker, which would move forward with vehicle to grid regulations. I should note this is already happening. So we do expect vehicle to grid regulations to come forward either way. All right, next slide. Swear we're almost done. Thanks for sticking with us. There are two bills on dynamic rates here, AB 1787, which would require the IOUs to offer a dynamic rate once a smart meter has already been installed, and AB 1787, which would require the dynamic pricing option. 1787, which would require it if the meter has been installed, and 710, which would require it to start with and then move towards rollout. Next one. Nope, other way. Next slide. There we go. Okay. This is our sort of grab bag of bills here. Some of these may look very familiar. SB 1187, which is a Brown Act update. This builds on SB 707, which this board supported last year in updating the Brown Act. This is just as part of our obligations as a public body. On the PUC reform side, you'll see in the upper right, two different approaches to ensuring diversity in PUC appointments, geographic, as well as other types of diversity. This is one from Assemblymember Ransom. This was introduced last year. It did not move forward, but it is eligible for consideration this year versus AB 2181, which is from Chair Petri Norris. Lastly, IOU spending restrictions, which you can see down there, SB 327. You've seen this before. This was SB 24 last year. It was vetoed by the governor due to a drafting error, and they're running the exact same bill with the drafting error fixed. That's how it goes. Lastly, I say 20 spot or intent of legislature bills, but that's actually going down every day. We're now down to 13 as we get more details about these bills. These are just two examples here of different kinds of bills. There's an intent of legislature bill that says, hey, we want to do this thing. We'll fill in the details later. I should note this bill actually got details earlier this week, so now we can dig into it, versus a spot bill, which particularly just says energy. Nothing else, just energy. And so that can be amended later on in the process. We expect this bill to be amended in the coming weeks. All right, next slide. Nope, other way.
Oh, sorry.
All good. Okay, that was a lot. I acknowledge that. We've made it through that. We have already presented this to the MRL, the CAC, and now to you all. And we look forward to your feedback as to the bills that we're looking at generally. We, of course, had our action item on AB 1761 and SB 1138. Next month, we will come back with two sets of adjustments. One is from this, we'll select a certain number to bring forward positions. We will bring those in the April board meeting. We will also have some brief updates to our legislative program. These are annual updates that we do just to keep it moving every year. So that will be mostly clerical, but we do have to put that in front of you all as it is a board approved document. Okay, next slide. So that's on what we're doing internally. Externally, you can see here is what we talked about earlier. We're moving through first house, then we'll have budget, then we'll move to second house. That's what the rest of the year looks like. Next slide. Okay, I'm not going to make us go through all these. There are 6, 7 slides here. This is a full list of the 80 bills that we referenced earlier. And the reason that I included this in the deck is for you to use the PDF copy. If somebody says, hey, what's going on with AB 1020? We've got it right here, linked directly to the doc for you all, so you can dig in at your leisure. We don't need to go through that today, but I want to make sure you had the full universe of bills. On that note, if you see a bill in here, or if you don't see a bill in here that you are interested in, on behalf of the agency, let us know. We can dig into it, we can add it to our tracking, and we can keep an eye on it. Director Trey has already brought one to our attention. Thank you, Director, for that. And so we've been able to add that into our process. I think that's the end. We hope to come back next month with far fewer than 33 bills for your positions.
Great. Well, thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Sam, Kendall, and Dominic, sorry. Thank you. That was a lot of information, but it was awesome. So because it's an informational item, if everyone doesn't mind, we'll go to public comment first.
Okay. There are no hands raised in the attendee area, nor in the room, nor in the remote locations.
Thank you. Then we'll close public comment and go to the CAC if you have any comments on these.
CAC discussions centered on energy affordability, addressing data center effects on affordability and high water demands, and possible pollution from generation and building demands around facilities, fossil fuel avoidance, cost isolation, and opportunities presented by balcony solar, and how this avoids grid connectivity. Public comments included a mention of AB 1577 regarding data center disclosure requirements and how AVA aligns with the the demand side grid support and AVA's virtual power plant programs.
Great, thank you. Thank you. And then we'll go to director comments, questions, anything. Do we have any questions from directors in the room? Nope. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Oh, our chair. I get it. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see. Sam, I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit more about how we coordinate with Cal CCA in terms of supporting or opposing and kind of how we work with them.
Absolutely. So CalCCA functions a lot like we do, except rather than you all as the board, Howard and the other CEOs make up the board of CalCCA. And so when we work with them on a daily basis. Weekly on our legislative committee, but daily on our Tiger teams are assigned to individual bills. So a bill comes in very much like what you see here. It then gets farmed out to a subset of CCAs on which I, Dominic, and Kendall serve on these committees. We then analyze the bills. That bill analysis is then shared across CalCCA and it informs our internal AVA bill analysis. Bills can then move forward to CalCCA for endorsement. The legislative committee, which is made up of folks like myself from each of the CCAs, we make recommendations. Those recommendations are then passed to the board and Howard, sort of the CEO level board for formal CalCCA endorsement or opposition or whatever it may be. That's the process. On a day-to-day level, we work with them hand in glove every single day. Howard was up there today speaking about PCIA with our colleague Katie from CalCCA. Sean, who has my job over there, we talk every day. They are an extension of what we do. I would say there's a part of our role that is we advocate on behalf of AVA within CalCCA. We want CalCCA to focus on this more and this less. That's part of what we do. But at core, they're a resource and partners in this legislative process.
Thank you. Any other director comments or questions? No, anyone online? No, well, I just want to thank you, especially the data center information. That's really important here. We have potentially 4 data centers now, and it's becoming very important to us about what's going to happen with that. So thank you. And then I really appreciated the way you sort of visually clumped everything together to make that way, like the different buckets. That was really helpful to make it easier to digest. So thank you all for the hard work on this, and obviously more to come. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. Do we have a? Oh, thank you. Sorry. Anyway, thank you for all of the work on that and more to come later. So Director Brown.
Excellent. Yeah, I was just gonna chime in and just say thank you as well. That was like one of the best, like comprehensive breakdowns of just the bills that are going through the legislature and explaining just the process, and it was just really good. So I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you, Director. Anyone else? Okay, Director Trego.
Well, I feel like this meeting is just too short, so I have to chime in. No, just as MOL Chair, I just want to thank you for not just how comprehensive this presentation has been, and we saw it earlier in the month, but how early you have been engaging with the board on this universe of bills, and just looking forward to continuing to partner with you as this moves forward.
Thank you, Director. And I should note, we will be bringing legislative position recommendations to the execcom, MRL, CAC, and board. So there'll be 4 opportunities for this one to review the actual proposals.
Great. Okay, thank you. No more questions? No more questions. Great. Then thank you again. And let's move on to our next item. Number 13, board member and staff announcements. Do we have any board member or staff announcements? Nope. Anything from the staff? Howard? Oh, Director Morado.
Just an announcement, if I may. I would, on behalf of the city of Dublin, I'd like to thank Ava for attending our St. Patrick's Day parade or festival and being there to share what Ava does for us. So I'll keep it short and just simply say thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Nope. Okay. I think, wow. Okay. The next meeting will be Wednesday, April 15th at 6 p.m. And with that, the chair will.
Yeah, and we're going to thank our presiding chair this evening, Julie Rose. Thank you so much. You ran a very good meeting, and the meeting is now adjourned at 7:28 p.m.